we're now going to take a look at this video. It's the AU chairperson who is in denial about the Christian genocide that's going on in northern and central Nigeria.
The African Union has once again denied claims of genocide against Christians in Nigeria, stressing that the situation is being misrepresented. The AU chairperson, Mahmoud Yusuf, made this comment at the United Nations headquarters in New York on Wednesday while speaking to journalists. His comments comes as reactions continue to trail U.S. President Donald Trump's threat of military intervention against terrorists in Nigeria's northern region.
Let me say this first. There is no genocide in northern Nigeria. We have issued a communique making clear that what's going on in northern part of Nigeria has nothing to do with the kind of atrocities we see in Sudan or in some part of eastern DRC. I think the complexity of the situation in northern Nigeria should push us think twice before declaring such or making such statements. The first victims of Boko Haram are Muslims, not Christians. The first victims, and I'm saying it with documented references. So the complexity in the northern part of Nigeria should not be taken that easily. So what we are saying to those statements, with regard to those statements, is that the African continent is very complex. It's not that easy to describe those situations with such very easy words that can be used in a not reasonable way. That's why the African Union continent, the African Union Commission are very clear about that. We made it clear in our statement and communique, and we would like really to stress again that there is no genocide in northern Nigeria.
So why would the African Union be saying this? Something that there's loads of evidence about. Why would the African Union, why would they toe that line?
The chair of the African Union is coming from a country that is about 98% Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, in countries we could refer to as the Christian states,
yes,
there tends to be a clear line between matters of governance and the church.
Yes.
For instance, you cannot impose payment of tithe on government coffers because it's people's money.
Yes.
Meant for the purpose. So members of the church may pay, and that is not binding on them. But in a country that is an Islamic country, they are governed by the Islamic rules. And coming from that background, it will be strange for him to perceive any cry by Christians that Muslims are trying to subjugate them or there is a genocide against them. It is almost a default setting. Anybody that, of course, it's not every Muslim that is bad. It's not every Muslim that believes in subjugation and all of that. But it is a tendency to find the Muslims in Nigeria saying, it's a lie, it's not a genocide and all of that. And then the man will actually go in that line. Now, it may not be a personal decision as such, but the man he took over from, Musa Faki, had a similar behavior towards the case of Hamas. Because basically his decision was purely driven by his religious affiliation with those that constituted Hamas. Now, in the case of this particular man, he spoke about the complexity in Nigeria. He spoke about how it is everything but not a Christian genocide. And actually, he doesn't know Nigeria. Their narrative is exactly the same. It's as if it's one individual that wrote it and spread it along. But the question we keep asking is, why are you denying the Christian genocide? What is it you don't want the world to know about it? So it came as a disappointment because of all of these years, almost 2 decades, that the Christians have been crying, talking about genocide and all of that. They've never said a thing. They don't know, you can't catch them saying anything serious about Central African Republic, about Sudan, nothing. But then they do have the tendency of becoming active when it comes to keeping certain evils in the dark. An example is somebody would ask, I would ask, the Muslims in Nigeria, especially those saying there is no Christian genocide, it's just a plan by the US to invade the country. I usually ask them, are you aware these hundreds of people were killed at so and so time? Are you aware at this time this happened? Are you aware at this time this happened? Why have you been quiet all along? Why are you only becoming vocal and active when somebody says, let's come to this man's rescue? For instance, you live in a neighborhood where there is a house where thieves easily jump into and steal. Deal with the family members, possibly break his windscreen. And everybody wakes up in the morning, good morning, and they pass. And the man now decides to say, this thing is targeted at me because every time there is an attack, it's in my house.
Yes.
And that is when the neighbors will now wake up and decide that they want to convince the police and the world that it is not targeted at him alone because somebody stole somebody's slippers. Now you would think that they are saying, okay, police, if you are coming to quench his own fire, come to my house too because I have similar issues. No, but the entire argument is to just deny the Christian genocide. Nobody wants to talk about the killers. Nobody wants to look at how they will be killed. As a matter of fact, saying, I want to eliminate these people is a big problem because somebody will wake up and tell you he has to defend his religion. And it leaves you wondering, why do you feel the need to be defensive anytime they say we want to eliminate terrorists? Okay. So his position is not strange to me, and he's pro-Islamist. You know, there is the general global jihadist movement of believing the world must be subdued by their religion. And I think a man like that heading that organization can certainly not be divorced from such sentiments.
Absolutely. Now, let's take a look at another group of deniers. Now, this one took me aback because these are people who are themselves being oppressed in Nigeria. And the people who, I think, from my knowledge, the people who supported them the most are the Christians. Let's just take a look at this.
Tension is rising in northern Nigeria as thousands of protesters flood the streets of Kano State condemning the recent remarks made by US President Donald Trump about attacking Nigeria. According to reports, the protest led by a Shiite Muslim group and concerned citizens was a powerful show of unity, with demonstrators carrying placards and chanting solidarity songs against what they described as an attempt to destabilize our country. Protesters insist that Nigeria is a sovereign nation and that no foreign power, no matter how strong, has the right to threaten its peace or independence. Security operatives were seen monitoring the situation to prevent escalation, while social media pictures showed large crowds marching through major roads in Kano, waving Nigerian flags and denouncing Trump comments. Let's be honest, why are Nigerians really protesting? People are being killed every day, whether Christians or Muslims. Nigerians are suffering the same pain. Instead of marching against Trump, we should be protesting against the failure of our leaders, the ones who have allowed insecurity, hunger, and poverty to cripple our nations. Trump didn't create Nigerians' problem, our leaders did. If another leader speaks out, maybe it's because our own has refused to listen to us. Nigerians should unite, not divide over sentiments. The truth is simple. Until we hold our own leaders accountable, nothing will change. The real protest should not be against a foreign president, but against a system that keeps failing its people. Nigerians deserve peace, justice, and leadership that truly cares.
All right, so that was a clip of a demonstration held in Kano. I think this was like 2 weekends ago, by the Islamic movement of Nigeria, otherwise known as the Shiites, who are a minority sect in Nigeria, who in fact have not been having a good time in Nigeria, have not been treated very well. They've been shot at, they've been tear gassed, they've even been killed. And when all this was happening to them, guess who supported them the most? A lot of the activists who I saw, calling out the authorities because of the treatment meted out to the Shiites were in fact Christians. But now I think they're probably the biggest demonstration over that weekend saying there was no Christian genocide was held by these same people. What do you make of that?
Now, that, I would say to you, basically lends credence to the religious motivation behind the security situation in Nigeria, at least in this part of the country. I was in Samaru, just a couple of kilometers away from the scene of that massacre that very day. And while I was leaving, I remember I was like, hey, careful, we had this trouble in town, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, wow. They said, actually, it's the military and the Shiites. Of course, they've always done a certain kind of procession where they block the roads and all of that. So I know it's not something people want, because definitely it will be a day when somebody is rushing his mother to the hospital.
Yes.
Where somebody is in a hurry for an interview and all of that. And then it does look like anybody that tries to do this has attacked our religion and there's a problem. So this time around, they came and there was this heavy massacre, over 1,000 of them. And they spent the next years protesting against it, clashing with security forces in Abuja, and their leader was locked for the most part of Buhari's regime. Now, the solidarity, let me emphasize, that they enjoyed from Christians made it such that even the governor of Kaduna began accusing Christians of being a part of the Shiite movement. That they are not, there are Christians amongst them. He has said that. I've had it on interviews. I may not be able to lay my hands on the clip, but he has accused them of that. The same way he accused Christians of being behind Boko Haram. Now, he did that and they got away with it. That was a massacre. So each time the Muslims say the Muslims are also killed, they also kill Muslims, I would always hope that they would use the case of the Shiites as a point of reference, because that's one of the massive casualties civilians have incurred from a government in Nigeria, that you could just pick up and kill that number of people. But it did seem it was easy to sweep below the carpet because it was Muslims that killed them, which basically also leads me to the next point. It was the trio of Buhari, El-Rufai, and Burtai, all of them Muslims. Now, I said that will lead me to the next point, because that protest you saw does look as if it is our brothers that are doing it, then we are more likely going to stand in solidarity with them than have a problem with them, than, have worries about the victims. In other words, it was a statement simply saying we might have suffered massive casualties, but anybody planning to come and kill terrorists, who by extension happen to be Muslims like ourselves, is actually hurting our religion. Something not different from the body language of the Sultan and a lot of northern Muslim politicians against the war on Boko Haram, that looked as if good luck, as at the time, General Ihe Jirika, as at the time, all of whom Christians, as if they want to capitalize on what terrorism is to depopulate the north. So it looks like it's unfair to us. It's unfair to us. It's an attack on the north, an attack on Boko Haram. Some people call them the freedom fighters, some people all kinds of names. And so they frustrated the war against terrorism. So the statement forces you to conclude that even in a clear case of terrorism, that many Muslims would rather stand in solidarity with the terrorist against somebody they perceive to be an infidel who wants to end terrorism than actually take advantage of an opportunity to end terrorism in order to show love to the victims of terrorism, even just the Muslim victims. And that is a very painful scenario. And that's why somebody says eliminating the terrorists may not necessarily solve the problem completely. Because when you have people I refer to as closet extremists, they can't come out and tell you, go and kill, go and buy weapons, do this and do that. But once they see people who are doing it, they make sure they fine-tune factors that enables those things from happening. So they either don't come out directly to condemn them, or they keep propounding suggestions that allows the people to thrive.
All right, so it's a wrap now. That's about the size of it. If you enjoyed the conversation, you can always contribute. Tell us what you'd like to see on the channel. Tell us if we made a boo-boo somewhere that you'd like to see improvement on. And of course, give us some likes. And by all means, try and follow, show some love, and we'll show it right back. See y'all next time.